YouTube. My name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. I've got no rhythm. Just been to see the Batman movie with my brother and my two nephews. It's 3 hours long, which is about an hour too long. But I think, and this is my short review, I think it may be the least disappointing Batman movie of the last 30 years. Take from that what you will. I've got a bunch of books to talk about today. I haven't done this for about 3 weeks. So I missed the last 3 weeks worth of Friday reads. So this is basically the whole month of February. I think the last one I did these was March 3rd, and this is going up February the 4th. It's now 1 o'clock in the morning. So hopefully I'm going to get through these, upload it, and it will still be live for you guys on Friday, February the 4th. Depends on my upload speeds are like here from home. Okay, first book I'm going to talk about was the last book that I was reading when we spoke, which was Empire of Pain by Patrick Radden Keefe. I don't have my copy here because I finished it and lent it to somebody already. Yeah, it's a great read. I really loved Say Nothing by Patrick Radden Keefe. I don't think this is quite as coherent as Say Nothing, and I feel like I had a problem with the central hypothesis, which seems to be that the Sackler family are the worst, most evil people in the world. Now, I think they deserve everything that's happened to them, every fine that they've paid, and every bit of disapprobation that they have received. But I also think there is other people in Big Pharma, there is Big Tobacco, there are people who made money from gambling and other people's misfortunes. Yes, hundreds of thousands of people died. I don't want to belittle that at all. And the opioid crisis should have been avoidable, and is just revolting. And they knew what they were doing, and they were still pushing these highly addictive drugs out to doctors. And they knew when doctors were prescribing way more than they should. So they knew when illegal pill mills were taking place, and they could pinpoint exactly. Yeah, they knew all that, and they should be held accountable for it. But I feel like part of the reason that Sacklers have been so completely cancelled is because they were one family, a privately owned business, rather than sort of a faceless conglomerate, and so they've been easily scapegoated. I even felt, and maybe I'm just oversensitive, that part of the reason they've been singled out maybe because they were Jews. I think you have to read the book and there's something there. There's something about the venom that has been turned on the Sackler, and particularly Arthur Sackler, who was dead years before OxyContin hit the market, and yet his name has been taken off. They gave millions, massive philanthropists. I'm not defending any of it. Take their names off everything. I couldn't care less. I'm not, I don't. But the way that the narrative has turned on the Sacklers, painted them as the worst people in the world, I think there are a lot of other people who have worked in very unsavory businesses, making billions of dollars off the misfortunes of others, who are sitting back and going, yeah, take a look at those guys. Thank God they didn't come after us. Okay. So a ton more books to get through. That was Empire of Pain by Patrick Radden Keefe. After that, I read Trouble by Mark Miller. This is drawn by Terry Dodson, and my copy signed by Terry Dodson. I bought this on eBay. I didn't want it. I bid on it to try and rate it, whatever. I ended up with it. It's a reprehensible, horrible piece of work that deals with two brothers, Ben and Richard Parker, and then two girlfriends. One is May and one is Mary. And if those names are not clear to you, so May and Ben end up as a couple, and that is Aunt May and Uncle Ben, and Richard and Mary end up as a couple and have a baby boy called Peter Parker. And this is the story of the young couplings of Peter Parker's parents and uncle and aunt at a summer camp in the year before Peter Parker is born, and the shenanigans that go on, and the sexy two-timing and cheating that have. Just really, I don't want to know this. I don't want to see this. I don't want to see Aunt May like that. And the story is horrible and really making an attempt to make canon something completely unnecessary, completely unexpected, and really horrible, reprehensible, nasty bit of work. Trouble by Mark Miller. I've read Mark Miller is famous for Kick-Ass, which is funny and transgressive, and this is just horrible. That's Trouble by Mark Millar. Okay, after that, read a proper book, and this is my first Percival Everett. This was The Trees, and you won't be able to make out that cover, but that's part of it. So you've got the trees, and you've got this bright yellow here, and then this sort of really weird grey cover, and you couldn't see what was going on. What is The Trees? It's a very funny book about a terrible aspect of America. It's gruesome. There are murders. There are bodies are found, and alongside the body of a white guy that's murdered, there is a dead black body as well that seems to have been dead for much longer. And as the investigation takes place, the black body disappears. And then later on there's another murder, and the body reappears at that crime scene, and it's the same body from the earlier crime scene, but still been dead for many years. Really weird, sort of strange goings on. Is it supernatural? Is there a ghost? Is this body the ghost of a black man who was lynched many years ago? Is this some kind of retribution that these white people are being made to pay and being murdered for crimes that happened many years ago? So on the one hand, it's this funny, knockabout, gory detective comedy. It's like a satire of every single, and a parody more than a satire of those kind of unwanted black agents in a sort of white southern town where they get called boy and treated with disrespect, but they're there to solve a crime and make sure things happen. This thing in the background of was that black body is it Emmett Till, who was famously a 14-year-old boy who was lynched many years ago? One of the most horrific stories. What are the trees that we're doing? I'll put it this way: this book is not subtle. It becomes very clear that the trees that we're talking about are trees that bear a strange fruit. And if that reference is enough to you, just talking about trees bearing strange fruit, at one point, our detectives are two black federal, I think they're from the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, so state cops. At one point they're in a roadside diner, and someone gets up on stage and belts out the song Strange Fruit. And if that reference is enough, the entire lyrics of Strange Fruit are then printed on the page. So it's hammered home. This is a book that has no subtlety, no nuance to it at all. It's very clear. So I had to wonder, is this a comedy? Is this a parody? Is this a dark mystery? Is this a supernatural thriller? And the reality is that behind all this, behind this lack of nuance, this total lack of subtlety, there's another story going on. While the murders are being investigated, there is a woman who has collated details of every single lynching that has taken place in America. And a graduate student comes along and starts going through this work that she's done and capturing these details of every single lynching that's taken place in America. And then the names of the people who have been lynched are listed out. There is pages of names. You could, if you so desired, and I did to some extent, although not for every single one, look up each of these names in Google and find out that they're real people and these are real lynchings. And then, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it justice here, then when you get very close to the cover of the book, you realise, I don't know if you can make out any of this very faint writing, this is a list of names of people who have been lynched. And so this glorious, unsubtle, knockabout book is not a comedy, it's not a parody, it's not a detective thriller, it's a monument. This is just tremendous. My first Percival Everett. I found it a very profound piece of work for all its lack of grey, a lack of subtlety. It's loud and it's out there and it's in your face, and it's shocking and moving. The Trees by Percival Everett. what came next? Cup of sip of tea, 1 second. So I read a lot of graphic novels this month because I'm trying to cut into my TBR pile. But this was an interesting one. This is 100 Nights of Hero by Isabel Greenberg. And this is, so it's a graphic novel. And it's plays into the sort of Scheherazade 1001 Nights story, and there are stories within stories, and so it's about storytelling. It's but spectacularly sort of feminist telling of stories, which I guess is right at the basis of 1001 Nights. Scheherazade is telling stories to keep the sheikh's or the king's attention, so that she lives another day. And there's an absolute reflection in that story. One of these stories is a similar situation, but so as with the 1001 Nights, that is a story, and within that there are several other stories. It's a really, really terrific piece of work. I say that a lot, terrific piece of work, but I thought this was that's part of the 6. Never eat poison sausage. That's strong advice. I'm not really sure I can do it justice, but these are sort of fairy tales with a very, very sharp and witty feminist slant, and then sometimes the wit disappears because there are just stories about how poorly women have been treated for centuries. I like this very much. This was 100 Nights of Hero by Isabel Greenberg. What else have I got? Another graphic novel, whizzed through Thunderbolts, read this many years ago, and had bought this first collection. This is the first 7 issues of Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts is famous for issue 1 of Thunderbolts. This was a time when Marvel heroes, there'd been a big climax, a big event. I think it was Onslaught was the name of the event, and a whole bunch of heroes went to their deaths. Of course, nobody dies forever in comics, but that was the big climax. This thing that we lost Captain America and Iron Man. They all went missing or died or were taken off the board for a while, and out of this emerges a new superhero. So all the Avengers the Avengers disappeared, and a new superhero team is born, and they're called Thunderbolts. And in the first issue, we're introduced this whole new team they've never seen before. And it's very hard in comics to introduce new characters and make you care about them, and then slowly there's reveals and you build backstory, and then they end up sort of interacting with other heroes in the universe if they become popular. So this was a brand new team series, and these characters Thunderbolts, and I don't want to spoil anything, but the first issue Thunderbolts, there were a couple of preview issues, so the Thunderbolts showed up in some other comic and then something else, and so you knew it was coming. There was a big thing, so a new superhero team, this is how that was pitched, and then there's a massive twist in the very first issue which turned everything on its head. I think it's a remarkable thing you probably couldn't pull off today in the internet era, but I wanted to capture this, and as expected, the rest of the issues in this 2 through 7 are a little lackluster after that first issue, and I think the comic ran for like another 150 odd issues after that, and I'm not necessarily interested in staying with the story, but that first issue is really delivers, and I just wanted to have that for the collection. Okay, then more tea. Then went back to another novel. I've got the Tournament of Books. I think it's starting this week, so I'm not reading all 18 books that are down to the thing. So there's 15 books. There's going to be 16 books will play off against each other, but before you get to the 16, there's 3 books playing off for the last place. So there's 18 books in all in contention, and I will have read, by the time it starts next week, I think I will have read 8 or 9 of them. So I usually don't get through all 16, but this was one of them, and this is The Sentence by Louise Erdrich. I've only read one other Louise Erdrich, which was The Roundhouse. I didn't read the one she had last year, which was the Pulitzer Prize winner, but I did read The Sentence just now, and it's okay. It's a book about books, and it's set in a bookshop, and the sentence refers to sentences in books, but also the lead character here is somebody who has served a sentence for a terrible crime, and this is about their life afterwards, so they work in a bookshop, which may or may not be haunted. So very bookish. Lots of mentions of books and how books are important and how reading has turned someone's life around. And then right at the end, even more exciting, Louise Erdrich lists a whole bunch of books that are mentioned in the book or would be the kind of books that lead character read while incarcerated and afterwards, and what made them into a reader. So great suggestions, and across, they're not all the same things that you expect every single time. I had fun with this. I don't think it's a book for all time. I don't think it's going to have a lasting impact. I think it's probably sort of mid career milestone, but I think I probably should go back and read the Pulitzer Prize winner before this, and I don't remember the name, but I think that probably might be a better read if I'm going to read more Erdrich. She is, I don't remember what tribe, Native American tribe that Louise Erdrich identifies with, but there's a lot of First Peoples. I guess that Canadian term, American term would be Native American culture in here, and references that as a culture that I know nothing about, not being non-Native American, not being American at all, is a culture that I have very limited insight into. So I really appreciated this, as a maybe more than the Roundhouse also had that in it. I think she touched on it in most of her fiction, but I think she's it's very well presented and very accessible. To me that was probably the most interesting aspect of this novel. That's The Sentence by Louise Erdrich. Okay, what else? Then I read some more Squirrel Girl. So I went back. I've got a whole bunch of the individual, the trade paperbacks, so of the collected series. This is 1 and 2 is the first volume of Squirrel Girl, and then 3 onwards is volume 2 of Squirrel Girl. So 1 I'd read before, but I just read that so I could get on to 2. So that was the first one is called Squirrel Power, and then Squirrel, It's True. But then also I read, because I bought this, which is The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl and The Great Lakes Avengers. So before she got her own series by Ryan North, this is all Squirrel Girl's appearances in previous comics. She was part of this sort of superhero joke team called the Great Lakes Avengers, which then changed into the Great Lake Mutants, and then named something else, and silly stuff. The ongoing series I think is much better. This was just sort of background reading. I hadn't ever read all these stories in one place, and they're great. And the best thing about these stories, and the reason why I'm very happy to have this early collection, is it includes, for some reason, an issue of a comic book, The Thing, Ben Grimm, who's a member of the Fantastic Four, the big orange sort of rocky monster thing. And there's a story in here, because this Squirrel Girl appeared in it, and it's the story. I want to find a picture of it. It's the story where Ben Grimm has his bar mitzvah. And he's, one second, I've got to be able to dig out the picture of Ben Grimm learning his bar mitzvah, and then look at that. There he is in shul, reading from the Torah, Ben Grimm with his kippah and his taliton, and that's really fun. That I knew about that, and I don't think I ever seen the issue, and now I happen to have it in this collection. And because why is it in this? Because Squirrel Girl gets invited to his bar mitzvah party or whatever it is, or they have it, bar mitzvah poker night. That's what they have, but I'm really delighted to have those pictures of Ben Grimm in shul, learning his bar mitzvah parsha. Who knew? That's the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl and the Great Lakes Adventures, and some other Squirrel Girl. Then another graphic novel. I'm still working through this series. This is the Goon. This was volume 2. So there was a 0. Then 1, so this is the third one I've got, and I think I've spoken about these before. This sort of, he's always punching monsters and throttling zombies and getting there's a lovely femme fatale. I love the artwork here, but it's just weird, sort of gruesome, macabre things going on, and stories. This has got a lot of origin stories of the Goon, and so this was My Murderous Childhood and Other Grievous Yarns by Eric Powell, volume 2 of the Goon, I've got, I think, at least one more of these, and I try and track them down when I can. Okay, after that, another novel to this was The Real Cool Killers by Chester Himes. Chester Himes is an African-American crime writer. This is from the 1950s, I believe. Well, this was actually withdrawn from Wigan Leisure and Trust. So this is the second volume, or the second in the Harlem Detective series. And the Harlem Detectives are two detectives who are called Gravedigger Jones and Coffin Ed Johnson, and they are hard men working as detectives in Harlem. Perhaps the only two black detectives in an all-white police force in New York in the 1950s, begrudgingly respected by their white peers, feared by criminals throughout Harlem. There's some really fine writing here. This is black as anything, or noirish as any detective fiction you can think of. And this was originally published in 1950, I want to say 1957. Published in 1960. I read one before this, which I don't remember the title of. A Rage in Harlem, was that the first one? And then they become harder to find after this. 1 second, there's the names. Yes, A Rage in Harlem was the first one, which was made into a movie many, many years ago. There's All Shut Up, The Heat's On, Cotton Comes to Harlem, and many more. This was, whizzed through this. I love this quote on the back from the San Francisco Chronicle saying that Himes was the best writer of mayhem yarns since Raymond Chandler. And that's fine praise indeed. I read the first one of these many years ago, so I'd come back to Chester Himes, and I hopefully, if I can find more of these lovely sort of Penguin Modern Classics edition, if I can find more of this series of Harlem Detectives, I will read them because this was great. Then another big novel, also on the Tournament of Books this year. This is Ruth Ozeki's The Book of Form and Emptiness. It's a bloody great big thing. 550 pages odd. I read one Ozeki before, which was A Tale for the Time Being. I think that was shortlisted for the Booker a few years ago. I think this was also shortlisted for the Booker this year. I didn't love this. It was kind of anxiety inducing. It was 200 pages too long. The book is narrated by the book. Do we get that? Okay, you have a character called Benny O.H. from a Korean father of Japanese origins originally, married to an American mother. Benny's father is tragically killed very early on in the book, and it's the story about his life with his mother. Benny hears voices. He hears objects talking to him, and one of the objects that talks to him is the book. The book is narrating itself and telling Benny's story, and then Benny interacts with the book and addresses the book that is the narrator of this book. So there's a lot about mental health. Do we stigmatize people who claim to hear voices, or maybe they are in touch or in tune with the universe in different ways than other people, and they may not be mentally ill and shouldn't be hospitalized, or maybe there's some of that going on, questions of what it means to institutionalize people and what mental health is, and what it is to hear voices and what it is to be in tune with the universe. Some of that. There's also some other stuff going on about drug use and homeless people and how we stigmatize those, the value of a library and what that means to these communities of marginalized people. There's a whole lot of stuff going on here. There's also stuff about job insecurity and financial insecurity, and then there's all sub-thread of a sort of a Marie Kondo type character from Japan who is teaching people about letting go of objects. Some of the objects you need to let go of, and some of the ones that are talking to Benny. It's a weird mishmash of all sorts of things that just took too long to get to the end. And so my experience with it was not great. Didn't love this. Ruth Ozeki's The Book of Form and Emptiness. Other opinions are available. I know many others have found this sort of really revelatory and startling review of all those subjects that I've already mentioned. I found it sort of a little bit glib on some of them, and then just trying to pack too much in. A bit like the Batman movie, except I enjoyed that more than this. Ruth Ozeki's The Book of Form and Emptiness. After that, went back to another graphic novel. This is one I picked up recently, and for no good reason at all. This is International Iron Man. It's a fairly recent Brian Michael Bendis series. This is, I think, 7 issues. And this is sort of spy stuff. So we start with Tony Stark in university 20 years ago, and he has meets a beautiful young student, and something happens between them, and then some kind of spy thing goes on, and Tony's not talking to his father, and it turns out she's got some relationship with her parents. And then we jump forward to now, where Tony Stark is Iron Man, and we recently found out, although this had passed me by, I didn't know this, but in this continuity we had found out that Howard and Maria Stark are not Tony's real parents, that Tony Stark was adopted. And so in this story, the whole point, Tony Stark's motivating thing driving his actions is to try and find out who his biological parents are. And some of that explains why he had always a tough relationship with his father, Howard Stark, the sort of genius inventor. And Tony Stark is also clearly a genius. Anyway, all that's going on. Some of it is sort of cliched, and we've seen this before of betrayal and young love, and 20 years later, and could we mean anything to each other? Oh no, but you're this and I'm that, and how can we ever? But you won't kill me. I can walk away. Don't turn your back on me. I know you're not going to shoot. That kind of stuff. I quite enjoyed it. The artwork is by Alex, I don't know how to pronounce it, Maleev, Maleev or Maleev, I don't know, and it was quite good in a thing that I feel like I've seen this movie, just didn't have Iron Man in it, but in this instance it does. That's International Iron Man, volume, I think it might be the only volume, 7 issues of that, and finished that, and now I'm reading A Mercy by Toni Morrison. I read 3 other Toni Morrisons many years ago and didn't have great experience. I don't have a great relationship with Toni Morrison. This one, the Rooster of Roosters, the Tournament of Books, win all the winners the last 16 years. Last year they ran a tournament and put all 16 against each other, and this was the one that came out top. This was the only, I think there were 2 out of the 16 winners of the last 16 years of the Tournament of Books that I hadn't read, and this was one of them. And so when it then won the Rooster of Roosters, I thought maybe I should catch up and read it. So I bought a copy. It's only, the whole thing's 170 pages. So I'm going to whiz through this over this weekend. Okay, that's everything. That's 30 minutes of catching up a whole month's reading. If you're still sticking around, thanks very much. Hope you're all well. I will try and get back on schedule. Not that you have any reason to care at all. Take care. God bless. Bye.